You're listening to The Lyndia Grant Show. Think on these things with Lyndia Grant.
Well, good evening, Radio 1 listeners. Thank you for tuning in to The Lyndia Grant Show. We are here in the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C. For those in other parts of the world, I am on every week now for 15 years, and probably for at least 7 or 8 of those years, Dr. Julianne Malvo has been here with me talking about politics. Our second guest for the show this week is Sandra Jackson, who is the president and CEO of the House of Ruth. The House of Ruth is a facility in the District of Columbia that does so much for women who had to get away from domestic violence and sometimes even bring their children. So we're going to hear some great things that they've been doing over the last 50 years. But she's been there about 13 years. So let's go now and talk to Dr. Julianne Malvo. Dr. Julianne is a speaker extraordinaire. I love to say that. Go to her website, Dr. Julianne Malvo. I don't think doctor's on there, but just go to www.juliannemalvo.com. And she's got books, and she comes and speaks anywhere in the world that you want her to come. She's a president emeritus of Bennett College, and she's been a dean at Cal State Los Angeles. Let's go now to Dr. Julianne Malvo.
Lyndia, thank you for having me again, and congratulations again to you on your continued service. And I also want to shout out our sister Sandra Jackson. I love the House of Ruth. It's in my neighborhood. I see people. It's just such an important organization, an important organization. We need as many organizations as we can help women who are in dire situations, and we really need to think more about that. We just need to think more about how many women are in dire situations, and what we can do about them. And, of course, that means that we're looking at a presidency that ignores women, that lifts up the abuse of women, and that's a lot of work for us. I want people to, I can't do it on here because I don't know how, but there's a song called Let the Sideshow Begin. Remember it? Let the sideshow begin.
Yes.
Well, the sideshow has begun. The sideshow has seriously begun.
Yes,
the clown car is running to the White House on full speed. I mean, President Joseph Robinette Biden is still the president, y'all, until January 20th. Mr. Trump has been elected. He'll be the 47th president, but he ain't the president now. So all this finagling about this is what we're going to do, we're going to have recess appointments. He can't make recess appointments. He is not the president yet. People need to get that through their heads. He is not the president yet. He's already talked about mass deportations. He's talked about the tariffs, which will raise your prices by between 10 and 20%. He's talked about, with the deportations, 300,000 and 1 million people kicked out of the country. But the worst is that he says he wants Matt Gaetz, who is a rapist and a child abuser, to be the head of the Justice Department. Do you hear me laughing? It ain't funny.
Yes.
And we could go down the list. Tulsi Gabbard, who's met with terrorists offline, met with the Syrian president. Greg Meeks from the Congressional Black Caucus calls her a national security threat. He is looking at, as a commerce secretary, a crypto enthusiast. The whole thing is just very difficult to manage. But what we need to do is talk to the people who have some conscience. There are Republicans with conscience. There ain't many, but there's some. And then the other question we have to ask is, what, in this, really, it's 2 months from Friday. We record on Friday. What can Mr. Biden do in 2 months? Number one, he can offer pardons to people who are unjustly incarcerated. He can offer prison reform. He can essentially, at some level, look at reparations. We in the reparations community have been pushing him for a long time to create this reparations commission. Now, if he creates it, of course, that man will probably reverse it. But guess what? Creating it, even if it works for 30 days, makes a point. Our country is looking at the economic injustice that black people have experienced. And meanwhile, there's another song, but I can't recall it. It ain't over till it's over. Mm-hmm. There's counting still in Pennsylvania. Senator Casey may still pull it out. It's going to be challenging, but he still may. So we need to look at that. We need to look at also, if you will, several races in California that are being decided by hundreds, not thousands, but hundreds of votes. Mm-hmm. And so we need to make sure that everybody there can do a recount, as many recounts as necessary. And then, Lyndia, I am just over the moon with indignation about Nancy Mace. She's a Republican congresswoman from South Carolina. Like, we don't have anything else to do. This silly woman has introduced legislation to say that anyone who's transgender can't use the bathroom in a house. I mean, they have taken this transgender thing and over the moon and out of control. So she has introduced legislation that really is targeting one woman who was just elected, and she's trans, and there ain't nothing wrong with that. But she's saying a trans person cannot use the bathroom. Marjorie Taylor Greene, the crazy woman, has said that she will physically fight a trans person who tries to use the women's bathroom. Now, we don't know the details of the transition, and we don't need to know. If she identifies as a woman, she identifies as a woman. Get over it. Get the over it. But why would you even, you're talking about one person. And trans people are less than 1% of the population. And, they use this commercials to attack Kamala when they said, well, she's for they, them, but we're for you. Mm-hmm. Come on. It's ridiculous. But the most ridiculous part of it is that these are human beings who are being stigmatized. Mm-hmm. This is what is going on. This is Trump. Let's be clear. Mm-hmm. This is Trump who has created an atmosphere of hate, duplicity, and ignorance. And so we really have to just push back on this. And President Biden has the opportunity. He is a lame duck president. We know that. He has less than 2 months to do anything. But as Michelle Obama said at the Democratic Convention, do something.
That's right.
And there are things that he can do. And that's the challenge that we have, is to get to him to say, he's always been good guy Joe. He's always followed the rules. Well, he has, in the last 2 elections, been up against somebody who doesn't follow the rules, who doesn't believe in the rules, who doesn't agree with the rules. Mm-hmm. So, dude, it's time for you to step up. And you, Mr., I'm trying not to curse. Yeah. Mr. Whatever, the incoming president. He is what he is, and we know what he is. Mm-hmm. But guess what else? We know that he does not believe in rules. President Joe Biden, you shouldn't believe in them either. You cannot allow this man to run roughshod over the Constitution and over our people. He is bucking hard for Supreme Court appointments, and that's the other thing, is the federal judiciary.
We're out of time, Dr. J.
All righty. I said what I had to say. Resist, resist, resist. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did. It never will. Those who want freedom without agitation are like those who don't want the ocean without a mighty roar. Thank you, Lyndia.
All right. Thank you for being my guest today, Dr. Julian Malvo. Now we're going to go to a commercial break, and we'll be back in a moment.
If it wasn't for my care coach at AmeriHealth, I probably wouldn't be so healthy right now. As a man, we don't get checkups or see a doctor regularly anyways. It's probably just a man thing because none of my partners go either. We know we should, but we just don't, and hope it works out.
So what changed for you?
AmeriHealth assigned me a care coach, somebody that gives one-on-one help, answer questions, explain things, and help set my appointments. She also helped me understand what having high blood pressure really means and ways to manage it so it doesn't kill me. It ain't nothing to play with. If you're a member of AmeriHealth, ask for a care coach. I'm glad I got mine.
At AmeriHealth, if you need a care coach, you can have one. Just call us at 1-877-759-6224 to get connected. 1-877-759-6224. This program is funded in part by the government of the District of Columbia Department of Healthcare Finance. Mayor Muriel Bowser.
Washington and former religion columnist Lyndia Grant.
Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat on a segregated Montgomery bus. In lectures on brotherhood, Ms. Parks often said, "People always say that I didn't give up my seat because I was tired." But that wasn't true. I was not tired physically. I was not old. I was 42. No, the only tired I was tired of giving in. Driven out of Montgomery by harassment and death threats, Detroit, Michigan became her new home. Rosa Parks will always be remembered as the mother of the civil rights movement. Raised in the AME church, she once said, "I remember finding such comfort and peace while reading the Bible."
Read more in the religion column of the Washington Informer, an award-winning African-American newspaper. We don't report crime or gossip, just positive news. Pick up the Washington Informer or visit us online at washingtoninformer.com. Call 202-561-4100 for more information.
This is Frank Smith with the African American Civil War Museum in Washington, D.C., located at 1925 Vermont Avenue Northwest on the Green Line. Did you know that a recent study found that children who visit museums do better in school and in life than children who do not? So parents, teachers, and preachers, let's get moving. I promise you, if you bring your children to the African American Civil War Museum, they will be inspired by the images that they see. They will be impressed by our living history reenactors who are always available, and they will be involved in our scavenger hunt that takes them throughout our exhibit. That's the African American Civil War Museum, 1925 Vermont Avenue. Our hours are 10 to 6:30 on weekdays, 12 to 4 on Saturdays and Sundays. See it. Be inspired.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Lyndia Grant Show right here on Spirit 1340 WYCB. We are going to now talk to our second guest. I'm so pleased to have with us the President and CEO, Ms. Sandra Jackson of the House of Ruth. And listeners, for those of you who read my Religion Corner for the Washington Informer newspaper, go out there and just look for Religion Corner Lyndia Grant and scroll down for a couple of weeks, and you're going to see a picture of her and a story that I did about the House of Ruth. So she was so pleased with that, and now we are honored to have her on our show this week so you can learn even more about the House of Ruth. So let me just start out by saying this. Here in the Washington, D.C. area, we know that issues of domestic violence and homelessness are significant challenges. It affects countless families and individuals every day. As hard as it is to face, these are struggles that touch every community and it's every neighborhood all over our country. Yet in the face of these heartbreaking realities, we're so fortunate to have organizations like the House of Ruth who have stepped in to provide a lifeline. And I know about that because I was a victim of domestic violence when I was married. Before we dive into all the amazing things of the House of Ruth have been doing over the years, I'd love for our listeners to learn about the woman at the helm. Her name is Sandra Jackson. Sandra Jackson. I know somebody named Sandra Taylor, and I keep saying Sandra Taylor. Her name is Sandra Jackson. She is the president and CEO. Welcome to the show today, Sandra. I'm so glad to have you with us.
Thank you so much, Linda, and I am so glad to be here today, and I so appreciate what you do in the community as well.
Oh, well, thank you so much. It's always been a pleasure for me, especially for the House of Ruth. I have done things with you all that you just don't know about yet. Sandra, talk to us a little bit about yourself and what led you to start the House of Ruth.
Well, I'm not the founder of the House of Ruth, so let me say that first of all. House of Ruth has been in existence for 48 years here in the Washington, D.C. area. Mm-hmm. I actually came to to House of Ruth in 2013. I have a background in social work. I'm a graduate of the Howard University School of Social Work. And so my passion has always been around working with families and children and strengthening families, because we know when we have strong families, then we're going to have strong children that are going to be able to move forward and do everything that they've been destined to do. Mm-hmm. So my background comes from that. I had a mom that was the social worker of the community. She didn't have a formal degree, but that's what she did. And I just observed how she took in people and how she helped people in all kinds of different situations. And, you know, it was so rewarding to see what she was doing and how much gratification she received from that, but more importantly, how she was really able to help people to move forward who had been in difficult situations. So I knew early on that I wanted to be in the helping profession. And so that was sort of crystallized by some moves in the community and things I was doing. And so I decided that I was going to pursue that career. And so social work was where I started on the front line myself, doing social work. And then, of course, I worked my way up through administration and in the public agency, private agencies, and found my way to House of Ruth. And so I've been here since 2013.
Well, tell me, Ms. Jackson, how many houses do you all have running in the District of Columbia?
Well, we actually have 15 different programs, 13 of which are housing programs, and that is anywhere from transitional housing to permanent supportive housing, so and as well as houses in the community where we work with landlords and where our families actually live in those buildings. Many of the buildings that we provide housing in are our own buildings, apartment buildings where our families or single women, because we serve both single women and women with children. So they actually live in these apartments, and these are their apartments for the time that they're there while they're in the program. They have their own keys and can come and go, just like, they were living on their own. And the whole goal is to get them to a place of independence. As you said, you talked about early on the issues and the challenges of domestic violence and houselessness. Well, House of Ruth was started to empower women, children, and families, helping them to rebuild their lives and heal from the trauma and the abuse of being houseless. Because we know just placing a person in a house or placing a person in an apartment does not solve all their issues. So we have to work with them around, the trauma that they've experienced, to help them to get to a different place, to understand what they've been subjected to, and help them to understand that they are not what happened to them, that was a point in time in their lives, but they are able to move forward. So we do a lot of work once our families come into safe housing. We're working with them around budgeting. We're working with them around household management, how to parent their children, finding a job or a career that they're interested in, because as you know, some of the issues with being involved in domestic violence is that people have been isolated. They haven't had control over their lives. Nobody has asked them what do they want to do. So we start at that place. We start by asking them, what would you like to do? Where would you like to go? What desires and dreams do you have? And then we help them to develop a plan, and then we help them to reach that goal through the process of their being with us, so that when they graduate from us, they can move forward and live independently, taking care of themselves, taking care of their children, and living, in areas that they would like to live in, or, in a new a new part of our program is that we're introducing our women to purchasing their own homes, helping them to get to a place to understand, one, that they can do that and that there are programs out there. So we connect them to those programs, and we help them to realize that just, getting an apartment or, living independently, that doesn't have to be your last goal. You can have goals after those goals.
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
I would like to ask, because I was a part of, my husband was a Marine, and I never left or anything. I should have, but I know so much more about what to do now. But there at your program, have you had any, tell me what controls you have to keep these men from finding women, or is that ever an issue?
So all of our buildings are what we call safe houses. So there is no description. There's no information on our buildings. You would not know our buildings from any building in the community. So confidentiality is key. We don't put the women's and the children's information out there. We have a separate system that we use that is set up specifically for families that are survivors of domestic violence. So certain information is not available to the public. And as I said, our buildings are secure. We have security services as well, 24 hours a day, staffing and security services, yes.
So it's like an underground railroad. It's in plain view. I love that.
Yes, a little bit just like that, yes.
Recent experience that you had was a show on The View talking about the organizational growth. Tell us about your experience with The View TV show.
Sure, absolutely. Yes, that was a very powerful segment. When I came here to House of Ruth in 2013, of course, there were a lot of history, that I became aware of and knowledgeable about, and there were some pictures. And these pictures were pictures of Whoopi Goldberg, Billy Crystal, and Robin Williams. And they had actually been on the House of Ruth site back in 1986. And we didn't know, sort of how that came to be or what sort of was the history behind that. And so, we'd always said, we would love to talk to somebody and find out what that's all about. And, we've reached out at some point to Whoopi Goldberg and The View. We hadn't gotten any information back from them. And one of our board members was actually going to The View for her birthday. And so she took some of the pictures. She took some of the pictures with her. And while she was there, she was able to share the pictures. And Whoopi Goldberg was so excited and emotional because, as you know, Robin Williams is no longer with us. And they were very good friends, the three of them. So a couple of days later, they called and asked us could they share the pictures on the air because actually Billy Crystal was going to be on her show. And we said, absolutely, that would be fantastic. And they were going to talk about, how all of that came to be. So what we learned is that the three of them back in 1986 had done this comic relief tour. And the purpose of the tour was to support homelessness. Yeah, back in 1986. So we're still dealing with the same kinds of things.
Oh, okay.
And their first stop to actually provide some of the monies was to House of Ruth back in 1986, where they delivered a check for $250,000. So that's the story behind the pictures. But with all of that, we got an opportunity to go that day that Billy Crystal was on the show, and I had the opportunity to speak to the audience about House of Ruth and all of the great work that we provide here for survivors of domestic violence.
Well, that is so good. We are just about out of time, just that fast. But what I would like for you to do is tell listeners how they can help you if they want to make donations or if they know someone who needs help. Both of those two.
Sure, absolutely. They can go to our website, which is houseofruth.org. We are here in the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C., and there's all kinds of information there, how to reach out to us, how to contact us. If you're a survivor, what services we offer. We have a centralized intake line that they could call and get the information that they need for housing, counseling services, child development services, all of the different services that we offer. And there's also the website, also there's a page there for Gifts for Families program that we are kicking off right now for the holidays, because obviously we want our families to have great holidays just like we have. And so that's a way that you could support us. Volunteer opportunities are also there. If you just like to give a donation because this is a great cause and you would feel, compelled to make a donation because it takes money to do the work that we do, all of that's there on our website.
Very good. I always tell my sorority, Gamma Phi Delta sorority, that I told them that you were going to be my guest and I'll be sending them a copy of this show. So I
Fantastic.
So glad to have you, and I hope that somebody will hear what you said and we'll be able to do something. Thank you so much.
I appreciate that.
For being my guest today, Ms. Sandra Jackson, and I'm so glad to hear about the program, and I can tell just from talking to you how strongly you feel about your work, and that's what it's all about. You have to have motivation and inspiration, and you have to also be someone who continues to do what it is you do over and over again, day after day. And that's what you do. So I thank God for you.
Well, I thank you, and thank you for the work that you do as well, getting this information out to the public, because that's important, too, so that they know what resources are available for survivors that may need this help, and also how they can support this organization.
All right. So I want to call you Doctor, but Sandra Jackson, CEO and President of House of Ruth here in Washington, D.C., we thank you for being our guest today. Now we're going to go to our close. Words, thoughts, and deeds have a boomerang effect, so be careful what you send out. Scripture says, my people perish for the lack of knowledge. From the Lyndia Grant Show, I want to say I hope you enjoyed this show with Dr. Julianne Malvo and Sandra Jackson from the House of Ruth, and we wish you a happy Thanksgiving. I know we'll have a couple more times to say it, but I'm going to keep saying it. Happy Thanksgiving, and tune in again next week. Good day.
Thank you for listening to the Lyndia Grant Show. Think on these things with your host, Lyndia Grant.
Washington and former religion columnist Lyndia Grant.
Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat on a segregated Montgomery bus. In lectures on brotherhood, Ms. Parks often said, people always say that I didn't give up my seat because I was tired. But that wasn't true. I was not tired physically. I was not old. I was 42. No, the only tired I was tired of giving in. Driven out of Montgomery by harassment and death threats, Detroit, Michigan became her new home. Rosa Parks will always be remembered as the mother of the civil rights movement. Raised in the AME church, she once said, I remember finding such comfort and peace while reading the Bible.
Read more in the religion column of the Washington Informer, an award-winning African-American newspaper. We don't report crime or gossip, just positive news. Pick up the Washington Informer or visit us online at WashingtonInformer.com. Call 202-561-4100 for more information.